Okay.
But then if she doesn't show up yet, we get going. And then as we begin and we're into things, maybe you stop the Q&A for a minute so that she can introduce herself. And, you can introduce her to introduce herself.
If she comes in late?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
Sure.
cool.
Sure.
Do you have any questions for me?
No, I'm going to just basically, let them go through their thing and then open up the questions. And I've got a list of questions if there's like a lull.
Perfect. Yep. Oh, here she is.
Oh.
You can just run with this one?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll just let you start off.
Okay, everyone, we're going to try to get started. You could I don't see any laptops, but if there are any, just close them. Make sure your cell phones are off. Okay, so good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. My name is Matthew Chesson. I'm the Corporate Finance Mentor for the GFA. This afternoon, we have a wonderful opportunity to learn a little bit more about corporate finance and careers in corporate finance from our panelists. I'll introduce them now. First, we have Robert Early, Finance Manager at Amazon, Tepper 2006 grad. Colin Raymond, Tepper 08 grad. He is the Director in Mergers and Acquisitions at Liberty Mutual. We have Woma Nwagu. Good. He's within Corporate Finance at EQT. He just graduated in May 2010. We have Anna Serrano, Senior Financial Analyst at Heinz. She was a Tepper 2008 grad as well. So I'd like to provide a nice warm welcome for our panelists. Okay, so they're going to first provide a little background, brief history of what they were doing before Tepper and their progression since, and then we will just open it up to questions from you, the audience. So, Robert, I guess we can start with you.
Okay, so how many people saw the presentation just an hour ago? Okay, well then I think I won't give too much. How's that?
So I'll start. My name is Anna Serrano, Assistant here. I graduated back in 2008 and I went straight to Heinz, working in the North America business. I work in finance. I started supporting the brand team. So I started with condiments and sauces, which are a lot of small businesses. And I moved to Ore-Ida, which hopefully you have eaten some of those products, the Ore-Ida GFA. And after working there for 2 years, supporting the brand and doing all their forecasting and plans, I moved to work with the sales team. So now I'm working with Kroger and Safeway, which makes 15% of total Heinz business. And I'm just basically making sure that when we promote ketchup, we make money.
Hello everyone, my name is Yoma Wadu. I'm the greenest on the panel, 3 months in. Before Tupper, I was an engineer, 3 years, Caterpillar, electrical engineer. Interned at Unilever, also corporate finance. Now I'm at EQT, working in Treasury. So anything that has involved in Treasury, capital structure, debt issuance, strategy,
My name is Colin Raymond. I graduated in 2008 before Tepper. Can everyone hear me? In the back? Okay. So before Tepper, I was an Army officer, came here, and then after I graduated, I went into the Corporate Development Program, which is a general management rotational program. I don't know if anyone saw, we had a presentation on, was it Wednesday, I believe? And so during that rotational program, I did an 8-month rotation within mergers and acquisitions, a rotation within marketing out in Seattle, and then was working on an IPO that we're still going through right now. And after that, I joined the M&A group full-time.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I think we're just going to open it up to questions from the audience. I'm sure you guys have prepared some in-depth intellectual questions, so let's begin.
Should we start in order or?
Whoever wants to take a crack at it, or just start in order?
Well, science is lucky in the sense that people continue eating during the recession, and on the contrary, people kind of like stopped going to restaurants that often and started cooking more at home. So that was an advantage for Heinz. So fortunately, we've been doing pretty well during the recession.
I'm a little too green to answer that.
For Liberty Mutual, for insurance, it's a lot like Heinz in the sense that everyone still has insurance for the automobile or anything like that. So we haven't had a lot of restructuring because of the economy. We've still been doing very well. We have done a lot of restructuring, though. I guess I'd say that has kind of been tangentially related, especially with insurance as an industry is very heavily regulated. And because of that, there was quite a bit of fallout from AIG. And a lot of every state has its own Department of Insurance, and they have looked at us and other insurance companies and requested certain things. Let's try and streamline your legal structure, that sort of thing. If you look at Liberty Mutual, actual corporate legal structure, we contain about, I don't know, somewhere 150, 200 companies or something like that. And because of that, it's obviously each company may be in a different state. We've tried to help streamline that. I think that's kind of been the biggest thing that we've done that has been related to the economic downturn. And then also beside that, we bought Safeco Insurance in 2008, which was a pretty big acquisition for us. And there's been a lot of, I guess, streamlining due to that and integrating them into our organization.
Is your question focused on the balance sheet restructuring, or is it organizational restructuring? Organizational? Okay. At Amazon, I think we've done a fair number of organizational changes that are unrelated to the economy. As different groups and different product offerings we have, something like Kindle, for example, or Amazon Web Services continues to grow, the organization within finance has changed in order to mimic how the company in general is managing those businesses. So we've seen a fair of organizational change, but unrelated to the economy.
Great. Yep.
The question is directed to the panel. Risk management, specifically enterprise risk management, looking at the risk that invasive overall considered to become a heightened thing. Where do you see that function fitting in with corporate finance? Or do you see it as something that needs to be separated from corporate finance and sit on its own?
I think it depends on the risk. So for example, currency that we think about, but if you look at Amazon's actual businesses, a lot of the revenue and costs are in the local currency, so we actually don't have to worry too much about significant hedging positions. Companies that have revenues and costs in different currencies have to really worry about how they manage currency risk. I think that Amazon in general finance does a very good job of highlighting the risk, and if it's significant enough, we might split something off and have a specific team manage that. But it's our responsibility to highlight and make sure that the business teams are managing the risk effectively.
For Liberty Mutual, we have pretty extensive enterprise risk management program because just the nature of our business, there's a lot of risk involved. So besides, for instance, for currency risk, that's a relatively minor risk for us just because we view it as we keep our assets and liabilities at the whatever country where the operation is. And we do get some currency risk, but for us, the much bigger thing is we have a lot of recoverables, so about $15 billion worth of that. And so we have a lot of counterparty risk for that, as well as your regular what every other company has. And so for us, it's centralized at our corporate finance level, but then we pull it from different organizations. So we have our reinsurance organization that monitors their own risk, as well as our investments. So our investment portfolio is about $60 billion, and there's a lot of risk inherent in that. But just for the nature of an insurance company, what you see, especially a property and casualty insurance company versus a life insurance company where they're looking for higher returns, we mainly invest in very safe investments, but we're always tracking and trying to make sure that at the centralized corporate finance level that we are ensuring that, if investments is buying bonds from some company, we're not at the same time, getting reinsurance from that same company. So if they go under, all of a sudden, from each individual part, oh yeah, we look good, but then as a whole, uh-oh. And so it's centralized really at the corporate finance at our level, but it's also looked at through each part of the organization as any sort of risk involved.
Well, for EQT, since we're a natural gas company, our biggest risk is like natural gas prices, the forward curve. So we hedge, we do swaps, options. We have other risks we look at. In Treasury, we look at other business units, and they have their risks, and we look at their business plans and try to evaluate them. So yeah, definitely risk management is a part of everyday finance.
I work in North America. The function of this risk management that we're talking about is held more in World headquarters, where they can see a comprehensive view of what everything is that is happening in the different business units, so that what Colin was mentioning before doesn't happen when we have one business unit hedging for a currency risk in one country, and then the U.S. hedging for a currency risk in the U.S., and then we basically just doing the same work, then paying double fees to do the same work. So that's how we manage it at Heinz.
Sure, right in the middle.
Question is for Colin. You mentioned the Safeco conversion. And I was wondering if you think it's a long-term, when you made the acquisition, you decided not to get rid of the Safeco brand.
Mm-hmm.
The name on the baseball stadium. I was wondering if it's a good long-term strategy to try to maintain two brands. One is more regional, but Liberty Mutual is national. Do you think you're ever going to fold them in and just rename it?
Yeah, I mean, so this is more a marketing question, but I'll try and switch hats for that. So the idea behind keeping the Safeco brand is the idea that Safeco Insurance we consider a national brand, but it's through independent agents, versus the Liberty Mutual brand. The Liberty Mutual commercials you see on TV is a direct brand, so that's, their competition would be like Geico. And Safeco Insurance is through independent agents. Their competition is through Travelers, and both of them are within their channel, within their segment, pretty large players. So, I think the idea of differentiating them is just simply ensure that we're not, I guess, kind of diluting the brand by the different channels. I think it'll work out. It's something that we've kept in mind. It's something that, especially with us having an IPO where Safeco is a subsidiary of that spinoff, it's probably going to stay there for a while.
Sure, in the back.
I understand that some of you on the panel have been out of the school for a few years now, but I mean, if you can recall your work, this question is across the panel. So what was your internship like, and which clubs or which classes did specifically help you for the position that you are looking
I guess I have the microphone, so I'll start out. So just what classes and clubs that we did at Tepper have helped us in our role right now?
Yeah, or for your internship interviews
for. Okay. So for me, my internship was in consulting, which is kind of a lot different. So I'd say that the things that helped me out with that was the consulting club, and you know, you don't have too many choices before you do your internship. I looked at mainly, you know, my strategy while I was at Tepper for my internship, and now, you know, when I was looking at full-time, was to pursue things that interested me. And, you know, I think one of the things that did interest me was finance. And I'd say, you know, among the finance classes that you can take in terms of a corporate finance aspect, unfortunately, and, you know, I did not like the class, but accounting is actually pretty helpful, especially for me coming from a military background. You know, what a balance sheet was or anything like that. It's essentially, you know, that, I mean, no matter what you do in finance, you have to know those fundamentals. And so that's really, you know, those types of basic classes are going to be the most helpful overall. After that, with, you know, what I'm working in now in terms of mergers and acquisitions, it's a lot more of the, I took an international finance class. I can't remember all the names, but, you know, learning more about swaps, derivatives, that type of things have helped me out. And really just getting an overall concept of understanding, you know, certain fundamental concepts in finance. It can get complex, but really if you understand the fundamentals, they all kind of come from the same fundamental ideas. So that's my view.
Well, I interned at Unilever. It was a corporate finance role, CPG, competitor, I guess. What helped me out? Working with the counselors. Do your mock interviews. They also can help you with your cover letters. Jack actually helped me out with a few cover letters. So yeah, talk to your counselors, get a mock interview in. Make sure everything's tight, right, before you apply. The interviews are pretty, it depends on the company. Certain companies will do a case, certain will just be all behavioral. If you're coming from like a background that's not finance, usually they'll try to test your knowledge of finance. So know your finance, basically. You know, take your classes. I believe you guys take corporate finance in the first year. So know your accounting, know your corporate finance. Just know your stuff.
So I'm gonna say a few things. The first thing would be finance is a given. Like if you're gonna go into finance, you should know accounting, you should know finance. What I see now, now that I'm working, now that I've been working for 2.5 years, I guess, is that those organizational behavior classes, presentation classes, it really make a difference. And it's great to have a financial model that forecasts how potatoes are gonna do in the next 5 years. But if I'm not able to communicate it to senior management, then I'm not being successful. So definitely make sure that you practice that. And there are a lot of open environments here. I remember when I was in school to actually go through that, practice with your friends, practice with your classmates. So take advantage of that. Because when you are in the company, you mess up one time and that's it. You kind of like you lost your chance. Now, the second thing that I would say is something that I didn't take a lot of advantage when I was in school, and is talk to the COC counselors. I did that late when I was in school, so the earlier the better. And the third thing that I'm gonna say is the interviews. Like, have your examples ready, have your whatever you're gonna say and whatever you wanna communicate, have that ready so that when you get a question, you know exactly where you're going, you know exactly what your point is, and you can communicate that easily and, you know, as if you had done that interview many times. And interviews come in at the last minute, so don't wait until you have your interview to prepare for that interview. Prepare for interviews, and then once you get that interview for that company, then kind of like change your examples a little bit so that they fit the environment or the culture of that company.
I would agree with what everyone has said, and I would like to emphasize the third point there, the last point. You have the opportunity to apply to many internships, and if you approach it that way, your interviewer will more than likely know. So what I would suggest is that you focus in definitely on several companies interested in, and prepare. Understand those companies, understand what they're doing, come to the interview with intelligent questions, be prepared for, be prepared to be asked about the company in general, and be ready to show that you're interested. At the same time, it is an interview, and if you come in and ask very specific questions about the future strategy or something, it's often hard times as an interviewer to talk about such specific details. It's much easier to talk about general cultural, the cultural nature of the company, and to talk about career experiences at the company. But I would make sure that you invest your time in understanding the company, understanding whether or not you would really be a fit at the company, because all of that will show very clearly in the interview.
Excellent. Sure, right in the back.
Actually, I'll start because I just want to actually reemphasize something that you just said there about the fit for the company. One thing that I think can sometimes get lost through your internship or your full-time is ensuring that you have the proper fit within a company. And I think that, it sounds really, it can sound really silly to people, like, well, as long as I can do X, I'll be happy there. And in reality, I really think that having the right fit for the company is probably the most important thing. And when you go to an interview, you should be, yes, to impress this company, you're trying to show them that you would be good there, but you have to ask yourself whether you'd be happy there. And so, I think that is actually the most important thing, because if you're telling you prepare, you do all that sort of stuff, you'll get those job offers. And the more important question will become, well, which is the one that I want to take? Where do I want to be? So I just kind of reemphasize that. And so sorry, what was the follow-up question though? I took several different concentrations. I didn't take any tracks, and I haven't felt that it's in a way. So.
I'll say. Okay, it's working. I'll say for the game with the board meeting, that's a great experience. Actually, 3 months in, we went through a board meeting and had to present almost the same slides as you'll see in the board and game. So you definitely don't need a track, especially if it's corporate finance, because you're going to have to not just take finance courses, you got to take marketing courses and general management. Corporate finance is not just finance, there's the other concentrations too. So I agree.
Those sound new. Yeah, I think one of the things we look at is really how interested is someone in corporate finance as well. So if you're doing a lot of investment banking type things, that may not be super applicable in the big scheme of things for corporate finance. As I mentioned before, I think general management is really the focus of corporate finance. And so understanding a lot about not just finance, but marketing, operations, organizational theory, all is where you'll really be able to leverage your knowledge. So I wouldn't necessarily not recommend doing that, but I don't think that there's any advantage.
Sure.
Colin, you just mentioned that you should be focused on like your fit at a company.
Yeah.
A lot of people say you make sure you fit in and everything. I'm not really sure what that means. Can you maybe give an example of a place you interviewed at or looked at that you didn't fit and why you thought that was a bad place for you?
Yeah, I think that when I looked at, I'm not going to give any specific, when you go to the interview, you'd be sitting there and you'd feel essentially as I'm talking to them, we're not really connecting. There's not a connection. I can feel that maybe my priorities and what I want to do with my career is different than kind of how the company sees that position or sees people who come in there. And you know, it's not a specific thing. It's just the same thing as when you're applying to business school or anything like that. You just have a feeling when you're there, when you're talking to people. It's like, well, I can work with these people. You know, for me, you know, where I am here at Liberty, the nice thing is when I went into the organization, I can tell you what made it more of a fit for me, which was it was more casual, but at the same time, it wasn't, you know, disorganized. There was a sense of organization, which coming from the military was good for me. I enjoyed that, you know, and there was also a sense of you know, purpose to it. And then some companies will be different. Some companies may have a culture more of where you're at this company where you know, let's say a high-tech company, and we're going to innovate. People are here maybe for 2 years, and then they move on to different companies. People aren't there very long because that's the culture of the company is you move to a different thing. And so, like, I probably wouldn't be happy in that kind of culture. So that's kind of how I see it. But it's not, you know, it's not like a hard and fast. It's just you talk to the people, you kind of feel like, hey, I'd like to talk to these people more. I like being here. I can see myself here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, nice. I think there's also a few concrete things that you can ask. So, for example, career path is one of the things that you can ask your interviewer about. How did they get to where they are? What were the decisions that they made? And in general, for someone like an intern who came in full-time after MBA, how is the career path determined? And when I say that, I mean, just to step back, oftentimes companies, when they hire in rotational people, will have predetermined rotations. And in fact, a lot of the decisions on those rotations are made at a level much higher than the actual individual. Whereas other companies, you drive your own destiny, 100%. And that's a very distinct difference with how you might want to fit into a company. If you want to drive your own destiny, you definitely don't necessarily want to go to a company who's going to steer you along the way.
Sure, right here.
My question is for Robert. In your presentation, you had mentioned a function called long-term capacity planning. Is there a role for someone who's just come out of MBA to be in a group that is involved in long-term capacity planning and across the panel in any of your industries?
So there's the opportunity. There's the opportunity both in finance as well as not in finance at a company like Amazon. And just to give you an idea, something like our fulfillment center capacity as well as something like the server capacity, both of those are done by people who have been done by people who have MBAs, and both have been done in the capacity whether or not it's in finance or not in finance. So it's definitely within the cards. I think it depends on the company. The reality is capacity planning is very hard, and it's a lot about scenario analysis. And that's where a lot of the modeling skills that you'll learn at MBA in your classes will help contribute to a good long-term capacity plan.
In the other industries, is there any scope for being in a team that does like either a long-term strategic direction?
Sure. Since I started at Heinz, I've been participating, in the finance functions that I have had. One of my main roles have been to help the business forecast how they're going to do. I'm not, okay, now it's working. Basically, not only track how they're doing and track their projects, but also forecast quarterly, for the year, and also 3-5 years ahead. I've had that function since I started. Is not only my finance function, but also my finance counterparts as well. Whatever they are, they're responsible for their own business unit and make sure they contribute and bring ideas to the table. And in Heinz, they look at MBA students to people that are bringing fresh ideas, that are capable of doing modeling, that are gonna highlight risk and take all the different variables into consideration. And going back to what I said earlier is it's not only having that finance function, but having that seat at the table when senior management is doing the planning, being able to communicate those models that we create in finance, being able to highlight the risk, being able to highlight how all the sensitivity modeling, so it comes together with how capable you are to in communicating and presenting and making sure that you are able to pass your point across.
So at EQT in Treasury, we have like quarterly board meetings, and we just discuss the long-term plan. A couple weeks out, and then I was working on that. I was working on analysis and statistics on certain areas of the business. So yeah, as soon as you come out, they're gonna have a plan. You can work on that. It doesn't depend on tenure or seniority.
So just to be honest, I've never heard the term before. But in terms of planning and projections, that sort of thing, especially for our company where we're a finance, our capacity is driven by our finances, not by anything else. So it's kind of ingrained into what we do. So from the lowest level, people are taking their projections, their forecasts, and then we wrap it up to finally where we are at the centralized corporate level, and then project that out along with certain things that we may know that are going to happen or things that we're doing. But that kind of strategy, yeah, it's really everywhere within corporate finance. That's one of the things that's kind of neat about what you're doing. If you're working in corporate finance in one of our SBUs, you're going to be looking at the SBU's corporate strategy going out, and then in our main corporate office, we're essentially helping to determine the corporation's long-term strategy over the course of the next 5 years or 10 years or what have you, and there's certainly opportunities for MBAs in those types of positions where you look at that.
I think this might be a good time to maybe take a step back and ask, maybe get some insights into what other types of career opportunities you considered outside of corporate finance. Maybe that'll shed some light on and help the first years to make that decision if they're facing it as well.
I also consider going into sales and trading for some time. So I knew I wanted to do finance. The question was, do I want to do sales and trading or corporate finance? When I did my internship, I went to Heinz, obviously corporate finance, and I really liked it. And so I guess that I decided at that point, this is what I want to do long term. This is what I fit better. This fits better with my long-term objectives as a person. So I stayed there.
How did you pick corporate finance for the internship instead of sales and trading?
I think it's in my, I guess, it was more of a. I had worked at Heinz before, so for a short period of time, I had done a project at Heinz, and I was so that drew me back to working there, and the CPG industry seemed to fit very well with my personality. It's very entrepreneurial, very I'm not gonna say laid back, but it's more relaxed, more marketing is kind of like the driver of the CPG, of all the CPG units, and companies in general. So they kind of like highlight the strategy, and then they have the finance partners making sure that whatever decisions or wherever they're steering work in the companies. And I really like that environment, of that cross-functional environment that they had at Heinz. So that's what brought me there.
Well, I also considered iBaking. So I was considering corporate finance or iBaking, and like the market went to, I don't want to curse, but it was bad. So iBaking wasn't available at the time. It was available, but it was very limited. So I went to corporate finance at Unilever. I still was, interested in it to see. I landed a part-time M&A position locally. I worked there for about a whole semester, my second year, so I had some time. And I liked it. I liked the business, but you gotta like deals, like you mentioned before, like fit. I'm not big on a deal. Some people love deals. I'm like, I don't know. It's not a big deal to me. So, so I decided, at Unilever I liked it, but I wanted to be part of, I want to have the overview of the company. Like, okay, a better fit would be treasury and corporate finance, because I wasn't too fond on deals and functional unit, somewhat. But yeah, I'd rather be in the middle of that, the higher level, I guess.
So, the way I came into the company was through a general management program. So the other areas that I looked at was consulting, and I still kind of consider myself in general management. I'm in a finance role doing finance things. I'm enjoying it, but that doesn't mean, I would necessarily stay within my company. Why I went from this role, from that general management program, was, I enjoyed the strategic nature of what we're doing, the high level of everything we're looking at. It's really, for me, I'm still learning a lot every time we do something new or trying something new. And there's there's always something new to learn, something new to do, and it's really great to kind of help take part in taking this giant, organization and helping to create and steer the strategy for the organization. That's why I'm in this role.
When I first came to Tepper, we didn't even have a boot camp like this, so it took me a while to figure out even what corporate finance meant. But I was interested in the numbers. I was interested in the dollars, and thought at the beginning that investment banking, and especially the side on deals and really on the valuation side, would be interesting. And quickly realized that I wanted to go to a level that was much deeper than was in sort of the deal after deal after deal. And I wanted to get much closer to the business. And so I started zooming into finance. And maybe like a lot of you, I had sort of a fallback plan in the back of my mind. I thought, well, a long time ago, I lived in Japan a long time, and I'm a Japan specialist. I speak Japanese, and if things don't work out, I could try to do something related to that. And so I kept that in my back pocket. But I got the internship at Amazon, and one of the things that I wanted to call out is that you can always fall back to what you've done in the past, and that's an easy thing to do. Like this, to do a massive career change, and you should leverage that if you can, and you can really learn a whole new side, and you'll always be able to move back and sort of leverage your prior experiences. And so for me, I was trying to understand something. Use the Career Center here, use the connections through the intern programs here to learn something totally new. In many ways, I was lucky with Amazon, and it turned out very well, because I had no experience related to anything, was related to Amazon at the time. So.
Sure.
How much did the industries where you ended up drive your selection for your current jobs? Or was it more a function of, I'm interested in corporate finance, where the openings are, that's where I'm going to go?
So I was relatively selective. I mean, I wanted to make sure that the company was interesting, that I believed in sort of the business model and the product and the offerings. So I wasn't just applying to every single job. I mean, it was very important to have that connection with the company.
Well, for me, in the summer, it was like Unilever, so CPG. I wasn't too fond of it. I didn't really like it. But I started looking at industries, like different industries. Like natural gas is pretty active, especially the Marcellus Shale. I already knew it was going to be very active and very, a very good place to be. And I could be able to do deals like the banking side, and I could also be able, you mentioned, go deeper and look at the business units and see how they actually function. So yeah, so industry's a big part. Just don't pick corporate finance for corporate finance. You should actually look at the industry and pick industry, because there's corporate finance in almost every industry. So.
For me, it wasn't the initial thing that drove me to where I am is the nature of the program that I initially came to the company at, and the company itself. I think the industry was the third thing. I've seen, no one really thinks of insurance as being that exciting, but don't worry, it actually is relatively exciting. It's actually pretty complex, but the things that drove me were, when like we were talking about before, the fit with the company, and what I looked at the role, I thought it'd be something fun and exciting for me to do. But it certainly, and I guess I'd say that the industry has turned out to be a lot better than I expected, but it was certainly a company.
I wasn't looking for a industry specifically. I was going to different corporate presentations. I was just trying to understand what was the role of the finance role of the finance function within that company. So I didn't want to end up in a finance department when we would be only reporting numbers. I wanted to be in a company where finance had a voice, and then I would be helping make decisions. So it's not only running numbers, but also understanding problems, understanding how the company operates, and how to help the company long term with the finance part.
Sure.
I have a work-life balance question. Yesterday we heard from a handful of Tepper alumni who are working in finance in other functions. One alumnus spoke of 15-hour workdays. Another alumnus talked of 100-hour work weeks, and a third alumnus said that the 75-hour weeks are made up for by the 35-hour weeks. Fit the work-life balance in your offices, and if not, how would you describe that aspect of your culture?
So I'll start. One of the things that I was trying to understand when I went to corporate presentations and networked with different companies when I was in school is trying to understand that flexibility when it comes to work and life balance. And I've been lucky in Heinz, because I'm going to tell you, when we're going through strat plan, I get to the office like 7 a.m. and I go home at 7 p.m., but I continue working from home, and I work over the weekend, and this could be over weeks. But then there are certain times where I basically just have certain things to complete and go to the office, do what I need to do, and if I need to leave early, I just leave early, or if I don't need to get early to the office, I don't get to the office until 9. And so, and when I say I'm lucky, is because I'm lucky because Heinz allows me to do that. So allows me to work from home if I want to, or basically have a pretty flexible schedule. So for me, I have times where I'm really busy and really just can't concentrate on anything else but work. But it's compensated by other times where I can take my time and have some of my personal time.
We have what we call a 980, every other Friday off. That's pretty nice. But when it gets close to a board meeting, you can easily do 100 or more hours a week. But we make up for it. So I guess you mentioned like a 30s, like making up. Yeah. Close to a board meeting, you're not going home early at all. But other than that, you can go home early every other Friday, travel. I mean, if you like that balance.
Yeah, I would say for my company as well, it's not like you described. There's certainly a cyclical nature, and I think that's the case in anything you really do. Sometimes you're going to have weeks where you're going to be working, but certainly not to a level of like iBanking or anything like that. It's I'm usually able to go and put my daughter to bed every night and enjoy myself outside of my work. But I think that's partly driven by the function you go into, but also driven, it's a lot by the company you go into. So depending on your corporate culture, some companies, no matter what part of the company you're in, you may just be working a lot.
Just to add one more thing, I think in finance, cyclical, but it's also a known cycle. So once most of us are involved in planning, and planning is typically the same time or the same times of every year, and you get to know that calendar and you get to know to expect when you'll be busy. So it's actually easy to plan a relatively robust private life. If you want to go take 3 weeks off and go, visit a country or go somewhere random and never look at your email, you can figure out how to do that, which is something I think that some companies have that high volatility. It's unpredictable, and when it's unpredictable is when you have a real hard time managing your private expectations.
Sure. Felix?
This question is focused in general now, but for those of you who may have come from a non-traditional finance background, what are one or two things that you've learned now that you now that you didn't expect prior to starting your role after your MBA?
So one of the things that I've worked very hard on is as a business support finance role, there's a healthy friction, a healthy tension between myself and my business partners that I support. And managing that tension in a constructive way has been very much a challenge. It's really easy to be like, to be black and white and to get to either give up very quickly or to push too hard. And finding the right balance is difficult. One of the things that I regret from my time at Tepper is I didn't take the negotiating class. I was like, I'm corporate finance. I'm not dealing with the outside world too much. I don't need to worry about negotiating. But the reality is that I do a lot of negotiating all the time internally. And this is as we sort of figure out how to manage that tension over different issues. And that's something that I've learned a lot about, and I continue to refine, in my tactics and technique in how to manage that constructive tension.
I guess one thing that I kind of have learned in my new role in finance compared to my previous role, not even being in the private sector, was I really thought that with finance, with numbers, everything would be really cut and dry, really black and white. You're like, this is it. This is our net, this is, no, it's not that way at all. In finance, it's really about, so that's when we were talking before about your classes, the first thing you need to know is understand the theory, because you're going to have to understand why you're coming to this answer, because someone else can take the same problem and come to a completely different answer using math that's just as accurate. And really it comes down to, trying to explain yourself. And there really is most of the time there's going to be no right or wrong answer. It's really going to be you trying to say, well, this is why I think this is the best answer, and giving the best support for it. And that really surprised me. I thought, this is math, this is easy. I had an engineering background. Either the bridge fails or it doesn't. Yeah, no, that doesn't work.
Like, I'm also come from engineering, and it was very cut and dry. Like, hey, this is the numbers, go ahead. But yeah, finance is different. It's the sales. You gotta know how to sell yourself and sell your ideas. I know from Treasury we have banks asking us, hey, you want to buy back this debt? You gotta know how to analyze it to make sure you don't pay too much. And their view is different from yours. So it's a lot of selling. There's a lot of negotiations. So yeah, it's much different than engineering. And I recommend taking as many classes as you can, not just finance, just to get your courses diversified and learn as much as possible about business in general.
When I'm just gonna tell a quick funny story. And when I was maybe my first or second mini, we took a presenting class, and one of the exercises was we had to fire someone and then go through the script of firing someone. And when I was doing that, I was like, why am I doing this? What am I gonna get out of this? Working in finance, and tying to everything that the panel had just said, well, it's not that I'm always delivering bad news. Obviously, I'm delivering good news as well, since Heinz is doing well. But understanding how to deliver certain messages, and so if you're going into finance, make sure that you know finance pretty well. But then the other classes are the ones that are going to help you differentiate yourself when you're not only interviewing, but you're in the workplace.
Sure, over here on the side.
Sort of going off of Robert's last response. So what exactly are you negotiating, and sort of what exactly are you coming to a compromise on in that process?
So I think we could probably all talk to this a little bit, but for example, if the business wants to run a promotion, we might have a very different view of what that means and what the ultimate outcome will be for the company. So it becomes a negotiation in the sense of, okay, well, let's rationally talk about what are our assumptions, why are the assumptions, why are they right, and you have to sell yourself, you have to sell, your analysis, and you have to but if you do it in a poor way, you will not convince your business partners or whoever you're supporting that it's the right thing to do. Doing a promotion or not, or doing a deal buy, as I mentioned before. I mean, those are some simple everyday things, but to say an acquisition's a bad idea or a good idea is something that it's a negotiation internally. I mean, you have to. There is no right answer per se. It's not a black and white, and so you have to as you negotiate, play your cards, show your cards. We have a limited amount of time. There's a lot of things to talk about, and so you want to come to a conclusion as quickly as you can. And so it's about figuring out how to balance that, to manage that relationship. Does that help?
Sure, right here.
A lot of these larger corporations have dedicated internship programs. Do you or any of your peers have any experience trying to get one of these corporate finance internships at a company that didn't have a dedicated program, or you had to kind of navigate it yourself?
I know some people who did, and the unfortunate conclusion a lot of time is you end up doing a free internship. Yeah, but you can get some really good experience if you're willing to sacrifice the dollars. And the reason why I say that and sort of laugh is that most companies, headcounts are part of budgets, and if the budget's set a long time ago. So if you set up, even if you called now for next summer, the budget might already be determined for something like an intern. So you might be pushing a rope at that point and have to come up with a creative strategy, which is unfortunately not making any money. But I do know people who have done that, and they've gotten really good experiences doing that because they were willing to swallow that financial side for the experience.
Just to add to that, Robert, you were fortunate enough to miss the craziness of the job market in the last 2 years. But companies that don't have formal internship programs did a lot of just-in-time hiring in the last year. So we did get some interesting opportunities for students to do internships at very reputable companies that didn't necessarily run a formal or large program like Amazon or Liberty Mutual or something like that.
And then maybe one other thing on that, though, is I think quality, irrespective of the summer compensation, quality of experience, it sort of is what you make of it, right? If you really dig in, you can always find somebody who's going to give you something cool to work on. If you're passive and you sit back, you might not have that great a summer. But companies that do not run formal programs are typically less likely to convert interns to full-time offers or full-time hires. They're not following the same sort of long-term planning, long-term personal development plan. So when a big company comes and recruits you for an internship, they're thinking at the onset, we're going to convert, if we're lucky, 50 to 80% of these people into full-time hires. Companies that don't have those programs, even if they're sort of similar companies, they just don't run their recruiting business that way, might like you as an intern, but they don't know what to do with you or what to tell you at the end of your summer. Maybe 6 months later they've decided they have headcount, but you're going to be a little more likely that you're in limbo during that time period because it's not part of the normal process.
Sure, way in the back.
So it's kind of feedback off that last question.
I think first and foremost, it's always easy to go from a large corporation to a small corporation later in your career. It's much, much harder to go from a small corporation to a large corporation. So as you think about what you want to do long term, I mean, hopefully the company you choose, you'll be able to be at it for a long time, but it'll be easy to parachute into a smaller company. And so instead of limiting your options to start with, I would consider corporations because it gives you the ability to do that long term.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And also I'd say, for some of the things I enjoy about working in a large corporation is you can stay within that same company. There's a large range of opportunities within a large corporation that within a mid-sized or smaller company, you may find that they might just not have that. And you might have to end up, trying to go to a larger corporation in order to do that. But that being said, large corporation, one of the big drawbacks that probably everyone would kind of realize is that they're usually have very set. In order to have a large corporation, everything kind of has to be set. There's going to be some formalized structure there. And so if you're uncomfortable in dealing with somewhat of a bureaucracy, then you're not going to be that happy with a large corporation in general. Some of them are worse, some of them are better than the other ones, but it's always going to be somewhat there.
Well, I work for a mid-sized corporation. Large one, like you mentioned, it's more organized, but you could get lost. You get lost, like you can become a number. Mid-size is it's more of a meritocracy than large. Large is like usually a bureaucracy where you have to kind of navigate little political lanes. But yeah, the mid-size, I don't know, I like it. I like the mid-size because it's definitely more. You're not clogging a wheel. You could talk to your manager. It's usually flat. I haven't seen any mid-sized company that has like a huge bureaucracy. Not really. So.
I'm just gonna agree with everybody. It's easier to go from a bigger company to a smaller company later on and have that in your not only your resume but also in your experience. But when I was going to school, I had a lot of classmates that didn't feel comfortable working in that big corporation environment. And they went into startups and smaller companies, and they're doing finance, functional, general management functions, and they're very happy as well. So it depends on what you want to do and what's your personality, where it fits better.
I think that's about all the time we have for today. It's right around 2:30, so I have to cut it short, or just cut it and get ready to go to the next session of the boot camp. But first, I'd like to thank you, panelists, for being here. All right, that's it.
I don't think I will have an opportunity to talk to you now. I don't know if you'll be staying around here or if you'll be going back to the office or today Saturday. I was looking for a time if I can get you business cards at some time. I'm from Pittsburgh and I'm looking for opportunities local. Okay. And I'm very interested in it.
You have I don't have a game card with me because do you have a card?
Well, I'll do the.
I can give you my email.
Yeah, just write your email and.
So you want to stay around Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I'm in Pittsburgh. Yeah. I want to stay here. I love it here.
It's just a little show of appreciation for. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Some of the things I was looking for is that other than treasury functions and your experience about the local M&A. Which was that M&A you were working with?
Schneider down.
Schneider Downs. Okay, I was looking at the website last night. Yeah. So I think Marcel very equity and all the energy companies very attractive, and I was looking for what are the functions and the amount of international nature of the jobs which might be available. But within the finance framework, I like the answer about the mid-sized companies. I have experienced that myself. I come from a small company and my clients are big companies, so I get to see the flavor of both. So anyway, thank you very much. Thanks for your time. And I'll set something up. Is there a particular day which is good for you?
Just send me an email and
Yeah.
we can just set something up.
Yeah,
Since you're
maybe.
local.
Where is your office? In the downtown?
In downtown.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Have a good one. How's it going?
Good. Do you just want to walk around because these guys are actually setting up stuff? How do you say your name? Sorry.
Yoma.
Yoma. Okay, I'm Venus. I've seen you on campus.
We're in the right place?
Am I?
Are we? It seems like there's way more people than there